Hey everybody, it's Kevin McCarthy here. I'm here with my buddy Chris Smith. Chris Smith is a producer here in Washington, D.C. At Fox 5. I'm the entertainment reporter and movie reviewer here at Fox 5. And we both are massive, massive fans of Zack Snyder and Justice League and superhero movies in general. And this is the first time Chris and I have actually done this, but we felt compelled to because it's such a massive deal. This is a huge deal in cinema that Zack Snyder was able to release his cut of Justice League. So Chris, awesome to join you, man. I'm happy that we're doing this together.
Thanks for having me on, man. This was like 4 years in the making, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Chris and
if you consider the fact it's the first time we've done one of these.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Chris and I have sat across each other at Fox 5 for years prior to the pandemic, and we haven't really seen each other as much during the pandemic. But we've talked a lot about Zack Snyder's Justice League, a lot of interviews leading up to it on our show with Henry Cavill over the years, or the original Justice League cast in 2017 with Joss Whedon's version of the film, which we don't really speak of. But now we're sitting here on the weekend after the release of the 4-hour cut of Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I'm going to go right to Chris because Chris is, in my opinion, the biggest Superman fan that I know, and someone who genuinely loves the character and also happens to agree that Henry Cavill is an amazing Superman because, you know, there's a lot of division in this DCEU universe. Specifically, it's a very dark universe, and a lot of people have been complaining over the years about, oh, like Zack Snyder had Superman kill Zod. It's too dark. And I happen to love that part of the universe, and I love the direction that Snyder has taken the Superman character. For me, Henry Cavill is the best Superman to ever grace the screen. I know everyone can have their own
own opinions, of course.
Yeah, and I love Ben Affleck as Batman. So you know, first of all, explain why you think Snyder does a good job with Superman. Why does he understand Superman so well?
Because, and this goes back to Man of Steel, and this is something you and I talked about when that movie first came out. Superman is an alien living among human society. He is from Kansas, born and raised as a result of being adopted. And Zack Snyder grasped that alien fish out of water story going all the way back to Man of Steel in 2013?
Yeah.
So not only did he take a fresh interpretation of a character who wasn't just this, you know, holier than thou. This was a person. This was a man. This was a man, you know, not only was he, stronger than everyone else. He was from a foreign planet. He was an alien. And they really honed in on that first contact type of a storyline in Man of Steel. Moving into Batman versus Superman, Kevin and I, you know, we've gone back and forth on that one a lot. Ultimate Edition, by far the superior movie.
No question.
But it continued that storyline of this guy who some people look up to, some people are terrified of. Ben Affleck's character, Batman, in that movie, one of the ones falling into that latter category. But it's easy to see how people could look at this being, this super powerful being, and not necessarily trust him, not necessarily look up to him, not necessarily know that he has the best intentions in mind for them. And that's definitely a storyline that plays out throughout this trilogy of movies that Zack Snyder has created in this DC extended universe.
That's why we love Zack Snyder so much, is because what Chris just said is exactly why I love what Snyder has done with Superman. And I'm not a lifelong Superman fan like Chris is. For me, Chris read the comics. Chris is all really into Superman in general. I'm into the cinematic quality of kind of what, even when it goes to Marvel, for example. I didn't read the Avengers comics growing up, but I love what the films have done with the material. Two things I wanted to say before we get into Justice League specifically. 2 points that you made I thought were really important in terms of who Superman is. There's a scene in Man of Steel when Clark lets Costner's character, his father, die in the tornado sequence. And to me, that human element there, that idea of him not being ready, or the world not being ready to accept who Superman is. And I think that grounded human quality to who Clark Kent was, or Kal-El was, or is in those movies, is what Zack Snyder has really kind of, like you said, honed in on. And then you go to BVS, which we both agree that the Ultimate Edition, if people watching this haven't seen the R-rated cut, it's 3 hours and 2 minutes. They're actually releasing the IMAX version of it on Blu-ray, I believe in digital soon. I know that Zack Snyder is working on that. But that has a great moment in the beginning of BVS where they connect the worlds of Man of Steel and BVS, where you see Affleck look up at the building. He has that anger on his face, and that ties into the whole story. And now we're in the Justice League, and we've both seen the film, and it's 4 hours and 2 minutes. Chris did text me with a tease saying that I loved everything except this one thing. So let's get into what you loved about it first. I mean, I've talked about it on the air a lot. I loved the film. I gave it a 5 out of 5. It is truly just an incredible achievement cinematically. It moves by. It's divided into parts. It's gorgeously photographed. It's amazingly scored by Junkie XL. But then again, at the same time, Chris, I feel like you probably agree, in 4 hours, you have all this time to build character. You know, we have so much time to actually spend on the Flash and Cyborg and everybody's characters. And it was really nice to kind of like, even Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf had an arc. That was,
Absolutely.
I thought Steppenwolf was the weakest villain in the DCEU prior to seeing this cut of it. He wasn't great in the 2017 version, but they, like Lex Luthor and BVS, with the R-rated cut and the extended cut, you actually flesh out the villain more. Lex Luthor is actually a great performance from Eisenberg in the Ultimate Edition, not as much in the R-rated cut. So here, everyone's fleshed out. So what did you love about this cut?
Well, first, let me start off by saying I agree with you on almost every aspect of this new movie. It is better in every single way, shape, and form, from the story to the acting to the special effects, everything about it. And it just goes to show you the power that editing, color correction, score has on an overall tone of a movie. Because if you compare the two versions, which I highly recommend you not doing, but they're all the elements are there in the Joss Whedon version, but you can just see how easy it was to mess it up when it's not in the hands of the person with the vision. And that's what this comes down to. Zack Snyder always had a vision. His vision played out. Like we talked about when you interviewed him after the fact, this was his vision for this story playing out. And I don't think, whether you love it or whether you hate it, you have to respect it. What he did and what he managed to accomplish, what the fans managed to accomplish, and what the people at HBO Max managed to do. You know, they entrusted him to bring this to the screen. And I think fans all over are better off for it. In terms of the actual things that I liked better about it, I loved Cyborg's storyline. Absolutely, hands down, the heart of the movie. It was, I mean, to use a cliched phrase here, but they finally did that character justice, the justice that he did not get in the original version of Justice League.
Yeah, and
so
also
seeing
his
story
dad, Miles from T2, by the way.
Yes, it is.
Sorry,
absolutely.
Joe Morgan.
No, that's fine. Joe Morgan. But it was great to see how his character started with this sort of chip on his shoulder, not wanting to be a part of the world. I mean, one of the two F-bombs in the movie was him saying to Wonder Woman, F this world. He has no bit interest in it. He doesn't want anything to do with it. But then you see how, both from the actions of his father, how that impacted him, being part of a team, seeing the bigger picture of the world and learning to accept what has happened to him has changed his perspective. And then he is the one, spoiler warning here, to ultimately, another difference from the first version, he's the one who steps in and saves the day to a point. Flash's storyline, I mean, he went from just being, with all due respect, like the butt of the jokes, like your comic relief necessarily, to actually having a storyline that mattered, actually having, some, you can kind of relate to him a little bit more, because he does kind of feel like the one who is nervous, scared by what's going on. He is absolutely us. It is, the story through his eyes is, how we are relating to it by far. I thought Wonder Woman's story was, I mean, Gal Gadot has always been wonderful.
Dude, her
storyline has always been wonderful.
That first scene, her first scene is so good. I mean, whatever that scene, are they in a bank or whatever they're in? But that whole scene is incredible.
I mean, and giving the story more time to breathe. And, I know there are plenty of people who say 4 hours is entirely too long. The way they broke it down into chapters, I saw a tweet from the official, Zack Snyder's Justice League account that, told you when to take an intermission, the best time for it and stuff like that. So it's an experience. And, when we're all kind of sitting at home and things like that, there is plenty of time to enjoy something like this. But giving the story more time to breathe, expanding on Steppenwolf, like you said, bringing the dark side element into it, which I know comic book fans have wanted for a really, really long time, because one of the complaints about Steppenwolf in the beginning, like you said, was that he was a pretty weak villain, but he was supposed to be serving this bigger bad. We were
Right.
supposed to know, and now finding out, his attempts to get back into those good graces, why he's trying to take over this world, why Darkseid's interested in this world in the first place. All of those things go into this story that really make the payoff at the end worthwhile. And also bringing it all back to that same universe, connecting the nightmare scene,
Oh,
understanding what the
yeah.
motivation of these characters is in the first place. Those were all things missing from the theatrical cut that we saw in 2017. Jason Momoa's character, his reluctance to join, and then his eventual willingness to join. I appreciate, like, going back to what you said about the universe being a little darker. Without a doubt, it is. But their attempts to
Would like it.
lighten it up, their attempts to lighten it up in the theatrical cut were an overcorrection by
Mm.
far. There are, just the simple thing that was in the trailer that wasn't in the theatrical cut, that was in this cut, when, Diana and Ben Affleck's character Bruce Wayne are talking to each other about
Mm.
Aquaman, and it's like, so is he yes or no? He's like, he's a maybe. No, it's a no type of thing. There were those elements of humor in it that I appreciated. And of course, Kevin, we can't not talk about the black suited Superman. I mean, that
Oh,
was something that Henry Cavill teased us with from as far back as when they were shooting the movie. It was something that fans were waiting for, eagerly bated breath, and then never got to see. So to finally see that play out on film, which obviously goes back to the 1993, 94, 95 Death of Superman, Return to Superman storyline, it was just amazing in my book.
So here's the amazing thing about it. Everything Chris just said is exactly why this cut of the film works. And at the end of the day, like, I don't think anybody's going to argue that this film is perfect. I mean, not a lot of perfect movies in the world, but you have to understand that this is truly the artist's vision. And with Hollywood is very interesting. Hollywood is equal parts commerce and art, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
kind of what at the end of the day filmmakers have to understand. Then you have filmmakers who really kind of rise above that and get the final cuts that they want, like Chris Nolan and the Spielbergs and directors like that who have earned that final cut. Snyder is one of those filmmakers who I believe truly deserves his final cut to be seen. And I think just with what everything that happened with Man of Steel and the backlash with the divisiveness of it, and then just the studio's interference of BVS and obviously Justice League, we're now able to actually see what that final version is. So at the end of the day, like I said, not every movie is perfect. So I'm curious, Chris, like what specifically there was one thing you said that like kind of bothered you, but again, at the end of the day, we both love this film. That's the crazy part
Absolutely.
about it, is it's so cool. But I'm curious to hear what the one thing was you didn't love.
Well, let me start by saying one of the things I don't love is the fact that I kind of feel like, unfortunately, we may be saying goodbye to this universe. And this movie opened up so many doors, Kevin, so many possibilities.
I
The
know.
introduction of the Joker, the interaction between Batman and the Joker. That is obviously a storyline that I think we both would love to see play out. What happened to Lois Lane? My one complaint, Kevin, and this is coming from the background of a longtime Superman fan, the guy who has him tattooed on his forearm. I don't understand Zack Snyder's desire to see Superman go bad. That's something, it
Interesting.
happened throughout, it happened in the Christopher Reeve trilogy in Superman
Sure.
3 when the red kryptonite comes along and we get that little bit of a darker version of him. This version of the character is already, going back to, like you mentioned, with Zod and his willingness to kill when necessary. It is a darker take on the character already. So, you know, I'm I want to now see this version of Superman, this version of Clark Kent. I want that Man of Steel sequel now. I want to see
Yeah.
him now, you know, appreciating this second chance at life and seeing what he does with it. I'm curious to know what Zack Snyder's overall vision might have been with that
Mm.
nightmare storyline, but at the same time, I feel like we just get these glimpses of Superman in these movies. You know what I mean? We had Man of Steel, which we both love so much, and then he was kind of, a secondary character in Batman versus Superman, and here he's, sixth, seventh character in this movie.
Yeah.
So, the Superman fan in me, Kevin, wants more. I want more Superman, and I want to see him living up to the potential of who he is and what he's able to do. So
Yeah.
that was really my one major complaint. I know that's kind of a cop out, but really, it's just wanting more.
Yeah. And so one of the things that and I think is interesting is Chris and I both agree that the Man of Steel decision to for him to kill Zod was the right move in that moment. I believe we and Superman famously doesn't kill. Now that and so that was a
Right.
whole to me that moment is what secured me in loving what Snyder was doing with the character, because it was the only choice to make. You're going to let Zod kill that family? No, he has to snap his neck and prevent him from doing that. And he does not find joy at all in killing Zod. He doesn't. I mean, he
Right.
screams after he kills Zod. He doesn't want to kill Zod. So I think, but you make an interesting point, because in the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League, the cut that we're seeing now on HBO Max, he returns in the blue suit in that scene, and he's under
Mm-hmm.
Darkseid's power at that point, right? Because of the anti-life equation, I believe. So it's one of those things where, yeah, you wonder. I would love to see Superman continue. Also, Lois Lane's pregnant at the end of the film, so
Mm-hmm.
there's so much to dive into. And I know that Snyder. I know there was some news yesterday saying that he's not gonna continue on. He does have number 2 and number 3 planned out. He's already given out basically all the plot details. You can find it online. He's talked about it everywhere. But it truly is amazing here's the thing. And at the end of the day, this is the way we are as a society. We never thought we were going to get this cut, and now we have it,
Very
and
true.
now we want more. And
Exactly.
that's at the end of the day,
But that's
it's
a testament to
right,
what he accomplished, though. You know what I mean?
100%.
It didn't like make us be like, oh God, thank God that's over with by
Right.
any means. It just made us that much more appreciative of what we got as a result.
What did you think of Leto's Joker? I was really impressed with what he did. I mean, I so going back to Suicide Squad for a second, another film that
Mhm.
was unfortunately butchered.
Do you
I
think we'll
would
get
love to.
do you think I was going to say, do you think we'll get an Ayers cut of that?
I don't think so, and I can't imagine what the air cut's going to be. I think the reason why that's not going to happen, unfortunately, is because James Gunn is doing his own Suicide Squad now,
Right.
and I think I don't know the intricacies of that. I just know that Air does have a cut in his mind. I would assume, of because that whole ending with Enchantress and the dancing is just really awful. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I was really into what Leto brought to Joker. Even though he's on screen for 8 or 9 minutes in Suicide Squad, all the behind the scenes stories about the things he did and the gifts he gave the cast, and like just
Right.
how. So to see him realized in Snyder's world, which by the way, what's really unfortunate is that Snyder's Justice League is not even canon. They consider the 2017 movie canon.
Right.
So that's another reason why I'm like, just continue it. Let them do it out of the world, out of the
They're
DCEU.
doing it with Robert Pattinson's movie,
Yeah,
right? I mean, that's supposed to be part of this separate.
yeah. But I just thought that Leto brought a really interesting darkness to the character, and I thought it was, we've seen Ledger, we've seen Nicholson, we've seen Phoenix, and I think Leto
Mhm.
still found his own way to do it. So I found that scene to be super fascinating. And again, same thing, same reason that you were not complaining, but having thoughts of like, oh man, I want to see more, because that scene there, basically Joker's joined them at that point in that
Yeah.
particular moment. So it's a really cool scene. I thought Leto did a hell of a job in that whatever that time span was.
I liked this version, the Snyderverse version of
Mm.
his Joker, much better than I like the Suicide Squad version of the character, to be honest with you.
What would you give Justice League, Zack Snyder's cut of the film? So actually, let's do this before we end this.
Hmm.
Because Chris is awesome, and you have to follow his social media, and we'll give that out at the end. Because I want to do more of these videos. Maybe as news comes out, we can kind of step back into this. Um,
Absolutely. These are the
rank
conversations that we have off air all the time.
Right.
So,
This is literally just us talking. We just wanted to put it out there. All right. So rank the 3 Snyder films and it's so funny. I keep saying DCEU, but so technically Man of Steel and BVS are canon, correct? And then
correct.
Joss Whedon's Justice League, people call that, is considered canon, unfortunately, from
Right.
2017. But let's rank these 3 films with Snyder's cut being the definitive cut.
That's tough. I would say probably still for me, it would go Man of Steel first because it was the introduction. It's where I fell in
Yeah.
love with Henry
Uh,
Cavill as a character. I would go this version, the Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League next, and then BVS, just because that was sort of like the setup to this bigger
Mm.
story for me. You know, obviously they introduced Wonder Woman, they introduced Aquaman, we saw glimpses of the Flash. So for me, that was really just, you know, kind of like the appetizer to this being the main course. So I really would rank this now number 2 for me, right behind Man of Steel.
Yeah, I'm with you. Man of Steel, I think, remains my favorite. I had never seen, I had never really considered myself a Superman fan until watching that film. And no
Mm-hmm.
disrespect to Christopher Reeves, I think he's a brilliant Superman, but it just wasn't my style of Superman that I particularly loved. For me, it was what Snyder brought to it that really kind of made it special. So I'm with you. But also a lot of it has to do with Snyder's use of score and soundtrack and music and Hans
Mm-hmm.
Zimmer and then. But in this film, I know we have to head out. But one thing I'm actually curious to ask you: what did you think of the music? I thought the soundtrack
It
choices
was
were incredible, right?
very noticeably different, obvious, because it was much more about the score than necessarily having, you know, a White Stripes song all of a sudden blast when
Yeah,
Aquaman shows up, type of a thing. So, you know, they obviously tried to go a little more pop, you know, heavy in the theatrical cut.
right.
So for me, this was again, and it goes back to Kevin, what you talked about with the director and a vision. And so I'm always more willing to immerse myself in the world of a director who has like that authentic voice. Like, you know, for me,
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of Tim Burton, for example,
yeah.
outside of what he did with the Batman universe back in the 80s, type of a thing. But also, everything that Tim Burton does is so uniquely Tim Burton, for example. So that's what I love about Zack Snyder as well. And
Yeah.
that's why, you know, I'm always willing to give it a shot. And that's why, for me, this was a great payoff.
Yeah, and that's a great
And
way
I
to
would
bring.
be remiss if I didn't mention, Kevin, because you know I always like to talk about this with every Zack Snyder movie we mention. You got to have that superhero shirtless scene. You got to show off the physique a little bit. And this one did not disappoint. We got an extended version
Yeah,
of Superman battling shirtless. So
there's literally an entire fight scene of Henry Cavill shirtless fighting the entire
just
Justice League, and
flexing on us.
that might be my favorite scene in the movie, not because of that, but just primarily because of the side eye that he gives Flash, which is
Uh
interesting
huh.
because that's what you made a point in at the beginning of our review here, that there were things in the 2017 version that I liked, and all of those things are in this movie. The side eye, the Nightcrawler scene, the awesome
Mm-hmm.
moment with Wonder Woman and Flash with the sword. I mean, there's
When he
so
sends the
many,
sword back to her.
all those cool moments are so that's why when I saw 2017's film, like there were things in there that I actually liked. It was because
You
it was
could
Snyder's.
see
Yeah,
exactly. You could
yeah,
see what could have been. And I think that's why so many people were so disappointed with the end result.
yeah. And I'll bring this to an end by saying the point you made is exactly why I think the film is brilliant. There is no way you don't watch this film and think that that's Zack Snyder's voice. Like there, like sometimes with a lot of these superhero films, when they're in the big machine of this superhero film, they're it's almost like they're just adding to the world and giving the next bridge to the next story. This feels like Snyder is telling us the story himself. Like it's just
Right.
through the visual medium of film, and it's really just an incredible achievement, and I can't believe it exists, and I'm just happy it does. So Chris, people can follow you on social media. Give your Instagram and your Twitter.
Yeah. So you can find me at Chris_Fox5DC. That's on Twitter, and that's the best place to follow me.
Cool. Follow him there. We will continue these chats, but I had to get my buddy Chris on for
Thank
an
you.
extended chat. No, dude, we had to do this because the film was something that means a lot to us, and it prompted us to want to have a discussion. But I'm just happy that you saw it and loved it as a Superman fan, and I do too. And that's kind of why I wanted to have Chris on, because I think anybody who has their thoughts on Snyder and whether or not his universe is too dark or he doesn't understand the quote unquote characters, you're talking to somebody here who is a lifelong Superman fan that appreciates the direction Snyder took him in. So, Chris, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. And
Thank you,
follow
Kev.
Chris on social media.
All right. Love you.
You guys.